Welcome to From Doubt to Destiny,
the podcast where dreams come alive. I'm Eden Ryder, the dream maker.
And I'm Stacie Trott, the queen maker. We're here to give your dreams the royal treatment that they deserve. Get ready to unlock your queen
and unleash her dreams.
Welcome back to, if you've been with us before, From Doubt to Destiny. Today, we are having a conversation around, I want to say drum roll again because this is a big one for me, good girls and perfectionism, or said differently, perfect good girls. And I liked when I said perfect good girls because I immediately thought of a mountain that had no peak. And I said, what's the point of climbing a peakless mountain? And I like that because I think if I think about it that way, then I can start to disassociate with a standard that is unachievable, unattainable, move away from it. We're having a reoccurring theme here of talking about things that are negative and then trying to remove ourselves away from them. But I think it's something women do. We pick topics that we definitely connected with, and we hope that they do connect that they connect with for you as well. So what is the tension? Every episode, we're going to have a topic. I just framed that for you. We're going to have a tension, some transformational thoughts, and then some takeaways. So you have some things to think about, hopefully action items that you can take in your personal life if there's something that, or your professional life or any other pieces of your life that makes sense. So what's the tension around good girls and perfectionism? I wrote down 3 words when I was just thinking, what does this mean to me right away? Like what comes up right away for me? I wrote restrictive, never right, inauthentic. Mm-hmm. And I think the standard of trying to be a good girl and being perfect is restrictive. You can never get it right. And by trying to be these things that I think have some measure of what other people think you should be in it, you'll land inauthentically. What do you think? What's tension around those words for you, Eden?
For me, I think pressure. Always living for like others' expectations. So it's never like you. It's always like, I don't know, parents, society, like whatever it is, like always living up to these unrealistic expectations and goals and like how you should be, or like always thinking I should be doing this. Like, do I want to do this? But I should be doing this.
Should is like almost a bad word.
Yes. It's like, yes, absolutely. And
I was in a thing once and I was in a room full of running people and I was saying, people were telling me I should do this and I should do that. And then I said, they were shitting on me. Yes. But I actually, when I said it was like another word we made up, but that's what it felt. The shoulds were like weighing on me. So it's a bad word. I should do this. I should do that. Don't let people shit on you. Yes. And I'm not cursing. It's like, think about the word should and catch yourself when you are using it.
It's an immediate sign of like, okay, I need to like,
who created this standard? Who said I should?
Exactly.
Should I? Unless you're asking, should I don't think you
to
should
yourself.
Be correct.
Only to yourself.
Yes, which is perfectly fine. You want to kind of maybe think about when you're using the word should and make sure people aren't shitting on you.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. What was the other word we came up with? Enoughness, which I got to look in the dictionary, see if it may be in there. But yeah. Okay, so the shoulds.
The shoulds, yeah, restrictive. And I think for me, it's always like, it's weird because it's like self-inflicted. I know that. Like I'm creating this like unrealistic pressure.
But you got it from somewhere.
Yes.
Don't take total credit for it. You got framed in a society that told you this is what you should be. This is what it looks like. And I think and then you absorbed it.
Yes, I think absorbed it, and like I think the more I've realized it's a lot of times it's because it's something that works for you. So like as a little kid, it was a good thing.
Correct.
Like
well, you get praised
for it. Yeah. So it turns into like a coping mechanism or like a survival skill that's like actually super smart that you
very
instinctually
strategic.
Know to do that
and
utilize it. But then it usually surfaces at some point where I'm like, this is no longer
serving me.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're going to see we're going to finish these other sentences because we kind of have some aligned thoughts around many things. But yes, okay. Mm-hmm. Tell me more. Wait, you were talking the tension. So the shoulds. That's what I got from it, is the shoulds. So the good girl perfectionism is all about what other people are kind of projecting on you. And when you're developing, it makes sense that other people are creating a standard for you, because otherwise you have no sense of how the world works. So you can't create one from yourself. And then there comes a point in time where you're operating under that. It's not serving you anymore, but you don't know that's what you're doing. So you're doing it. And as you move in the journey of becoming, you start to realize, wait a minute, where are these thoughts coming from? Are they mine? Do I still want them to be how I think, or do I want to change and reframe anything differently? So when we were thinking about how we were going to talk about this, we were getting our makeup done, and you were having a conversation with your makeup artist. I was having a very different conversation with mine, but a really good one, but different. And you talked about the monologue that America Ferrera, her character, does in Barbie. And we started looking at some pieces of it, and I'm gonna read, and I intend to stop, but I may not, because there are parts of it that I think just
it makes you keep going.
Yeah, it makes you keep going, because it's almost like as you keep reading, it starts to become more and more like, how on earth was this the rubric in which I chose to think about myself? And I say chose lightly, because I want to make sure there's grace for the fact that I don't think any woman chooses this. We're crafted in an environment that tells us this. Correct. And you have to give yourself the grace that when you're being formed and you're learning how things work, someone else is teaching you. And that's just how life works. Very few things when you're in the stages of, let's just say, childhood and adolescence, are you self-taught. So someone's giving you like, this is how it works. And, I know a spoon is a spoon because somebody told me this is what it's called. Right.
Interesting. Side fact, from 0 to 7, literally everything is just dumping right into your subconscious. Like it's just fact.
Yes.
So you literally are just,
so then you're like, well, it's a choice. And I'm like, well, how much of it was a choice? Or did I just kind of like, I'm doing what I was taught, and now I have to start pushing up against that and asking questions. So if you've seen the movie, then this piece of the movie is unforgettable. But here's what her character, America Ferrera's character, Gloria, says in this monologue about how hard it is to be a woman. She says, it's literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. You can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of this sisterhood. But always stand out and always be grateful. Never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard. It's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll just representing women, then I don't even know. Feels like an incomplete sentence, and yet it's like, I just don't even know. Where do you go from this? So I remember how I felt when I heard it, and I was like, oh my God, what an amazing crystallization of all of the contradictions that exist, and you have to be both, which is almost impossible at the same time. So I think perfect good girl, I would just take that phrase and say, we're going to throw that out. It's not a thing. It's a mountain without a peak, so don't even try. And it doesn't mean don't create a standard, don't have a moral compass. All of that is important. But it's okay to be messy.
Yes, I've been saying that lately.
It's okay to be messy. It's okay to be in process. That doesn't mean that you get to, when called out on things that need to change, that you don't need to make changes. But I think the word that came to mind for me when I was thinking, what's a transformational thought about how to push up against perfect good girl? It's grace. I think the antithesis to perfection is grace. So it's okay to have high standards and to want to be good at many things, but in the process of doing it, do it imperfectly and have grace. So what would you say to that? Yes, be messy.
Absolutely. 100%. I think grace, and I think also like in this, which is interesting, and actually this came up earlier too when I was it was
Something
I guess meant
somewhere.
to be that it was like we were having this conversation. I didn't even say we were going to be talking about this, but I talked earlier with my makeup artist as well, like the grace for yourself. But then interestingly enough, I also think women are hardest on each other as well at times.
Yeah.
So like giving that grace to like others as well, because I feel like when we have that perfect standard for like, you know what I mean, like for ourselves, then we're like projecting that onto other women, or it's even like being so judgmental because we're so.
Tell me what you think about this. I feel like growing up as a adolescent, teen, even young adult, I found I found it challenging to get grace and connection with other women. Like it was almost like there was a lot of competitiveness in that season.
100%. Yeah.
And now in this season of life, I feel like there's much more of a sisterhood, and there's more of women kind of extending the arm across the aisle, pulling down the masks, saying, I'm struggling. And they're like, oh, I'm struggling with this too. And I feel like that didn't exist in like, you know, I don't know, 13 to 30 maybe.
Yeah.
And now as like a different season of life, there's more like, I don't want to compete with you. I want to lock arms with you. I don't want to hide from you. I want to open up to you. I don't want to feel like you're a challenger. I want to make you a friend. And I don't know if young girls are feeling that, but I definitely think in this pocket of life I'm in, I'll say the second third of my life. If you break life up into 3/3, 1 to 30, 31 to 60, and then 61 plus. And being in the second third of life, I feel like there is a measure of much more camaraderie than I feel like I had when I was in that first third.
I agree. I feel like I'm in the in-between, but I'm a lot more intentional about my relationships. And then,
I'm super intentional.
Yes, I'm like way more intentional.
Yes, so I wouldn't say less is more.
I still see it existing for sure, but I'm just not either engaging in it or I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I also think there is more space in general right now. Like I think even like this time is way more, again, more like women's empowerment and actually like coming together. Yeah. Which helps, but I guess that's what I'm saying. Like I still sense it. I think even a lot of, again, about like all these like societal norms. It's interesting because it can come, from, I don't know, like whatever, like men or like whatever it is. But then a lot of times they see it though, like where I actually sense it, it can be from other women. Even I feel like, especially even around if it's like the whole debate of like being a stay-at-home mom versus like a working mom. And I remember like when I had the opportunity to be home with my daughter and like us moving to Toronto and stuff. Like I remember even meeting people and they're like, oh, that must be nice. Like, what do you do all day? And I'm like,
what do you mean?
Like,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Like, so just it's interesting, like the comments like that and stuff, and how even like as women, like we kind of perpetrate those feelings like on each other. And I think again, though, it's because it's like those things get ingrained in us and not even realizing like we do it to each other at times.
Or maybe some of the, I don't know if it's self-hate, but some of the frustrations I feel, then I'm kind of like lashing out with them as opposed to embracing, oh, how'd you do that with curiosity? So I can do that too. Instead of seeing it as like, I wish I Yeah, I can't remember the last time I said must be nice. Right. But there was a season where everything else that I wanted for myself, I'm like, must be nice. I don't have that luxury. And so it's a shift in mindset.
100%. And I think like getting curious versus going like into like either a judgmental zone or like a
jealousy.
Yes.
Yes. The other J word.
It's interesting. I feel like, again, I think younger, I would say, is when I started realizing that, where I like started shifting like, okay, if I'm feeling jealousy or like that envy, clearly there's either something I desire in that.
Yes.
Or something I even admire.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? So it's telling me something about me.
Yeah.
It's not telling me something about that person. It's 100% me. I feel like I don't know how I segued into this, but I don't know why it made me think of even like the good girl complex of how it then even can relate to like other women, which is interesting because like instead of like building each other up and supporting and encouraging, it can actually then how even make that tension more there.
Meaning you feel like when one woman sees another woman that's a good girl, instead of praising that, she's like shaming the other woman for that. Tell me what you mean by that.
No, I think I just mean like the tension of like being a girl and like a good girl, or like all these things were like taught and like ingrained, like how we then actually can act that way then towards like each other as well. Like sometimes we're actually even harder on each other.
Got it.
Of those like societal like expectations and stuff, then we end up actually being the ones that are like even being like more judgy and more petty and like actually making the comments.
I can think, like others were doing it to us and now we're doing it to each other. Yeah, totally. I would say that. Like, there's a show that will remain nameless that I watch, and I noticed that there are a panel of quote unquote judges or people that are evaluating, and I feel like the woman is harder on women.
Yes,
I think see it, but I'm like, am I making this up or am I projecting this? Right. Like even when I think I'm seeing it, I'm like, what's happening? And so I do think that there's something to that, and I would say that's probably a symptom of some unresolved, like you said. Use two words that I really liked are desire and admire. And I wish that when we saw something else in another woman's life that we are attracted to, that we see it as a sign of acknowledging desire and admiration. Right. And I don't even need to have necessarily maybe a talent or a gift that you have. I just wanted to I want it around me. I want it in my ether. I want to benefit from it as much as I can give you some things that you can benefit from, as opposed to feeling like I want what she has for myself.
Right.
Which I see like green eyes when I think about that, right? Like so I didn't even think we'd go here and talking about good girl and perfectionism, but it's interesting because you just go where the thoughts take you, and someone must need to hear if you're having this kind of level of reflection in your own life. What can you do differently when you realize, okay, I've got a thing about being a good girl and whatever that means, and maybe there's some inauthenticity showing up in me because I'm trying to be something that's not landing right, but I'm still trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole. And then perfectionism, and I know perfectionism for me has always been, I didn't even know I suffered from it until I started realizing that I couldn't start something until I felt like I had it all figured out. And I have learned that literally you just have to start. And so it's in the going that the growing occurs. And I think if you suffer from or struggle with perfectionism, it's really hard to start and know it's going to be messy.
You know what's interesting is same, like 100%. I always say I'm like a recovering perfectionist, but
it's a real
condition. Actually will start. For me, it's finishing.
Okay, that's where the perfectionism is. Yes. I can't finish it because I've got to make it perfect. I'll always
be like, this isn't good enough, or like I can't actually do this, or like what were you thinking? Like this isn't.
The two words I'm thinking of are refining and revising. You keep refining and revising
I keep
it,
going
refining
back,
and revising it.
Where, like the done is better than perfect. Where it's just. I'm to the point now where I'm like, okay, like this is never going to get out, and I'm never going, I know myself at this point.
It's never going to be perfect.
It's never going to be perfect. So let's just start with this round, or like put it out there and it can get improved upon, and like you're going to continue to grow. Like I just need to at times like check, did it,
Done.
Yeah. Like,
and don't think about it.
Yes.
If you think about it too hard, you'll talk yourself out of execution.
It's funny, even for something as little as, which I had to reflect on and move past this, but like as posting, I would literally like post it, be like holding my breath, and then I'd like literally want to
pull it back.
But then like, no, I'd post it. But then like you're supposed to like engage and like comments and stuff, and I'd be like, and I'm not looking at it. Like I act like my phone now like doesn't exist. Or even then like scheduling posts, it would be at like 9 a.m. and I would literally see my phone and I'm like, I'm not going near that until like 12.
Right. Because I need to give myself space.
But
from
like
it.
It's just so like silly, but like it's that real like feeling of like, I don't know, it feels like the world is like ending just because like I
think
so
behind that, what I'm hearing behind that is, what's behind it is, are they gonna like me?
Right. That like people, it's falling into that like people pleasing, and then also I think a part of it, at least for me, how it would show up is I always feel like I'm not really supposed to have an opinion. Like it's kind of that like, not like be seen but not heard. So like,
that's the thing.
Sit there, look pretty, like nod your head, smile. Like, kind of like, it makes me think even I was always like, when I'd be always smiley. So like the second I'm not smiling, it's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't, like, I'm just
resting.
Like,
I'm thinking, I'm processing.
It's like, you know, like I feel like it's been like, look a certain way, view that. So like, don't say anything polarizing. Like, don't say anything. Like, I'm just very well aware of like, that person might be okay with it. That person I know is going to hate what I just said. Like, I was always calculating all of that in like every situation I'm in, like so oversensitive to my surroundings, who's around, who could perceive this. Like it was like this hyper awareness.
That sounds draining.
No, it's exhausting.
I was going to ask, is it draining?
I will say I'm like way more in the, it still comes up for me, but I'm not like living in that space anymore. It's a lot. It doesn't come up as frequently.
Well, that's why you're recovering.
Yes, recovering. Exactly. And like I 100% have leaned into like giving myself grace and
Yeah. Even you're describing it was exhausting.
Yeah, I get like breathy.
Yes. Thinking about. And I think part of the problem, or another permutation of it, I've never thought about what I'm about to say until this moment, is, you know, perfectionism showed up for you in like revising, refining, anxiety, do it, don't do it, do it, now don't look at it. And I would say another permutation of that, which I've never thought of before, is I'll just opt out.
Yes.
Not going to participate, not doing it. I don't want to. It's not happening. And that's a way of saying they can't reject me if I just don't participate, because I know it's not going to be good enough. I know I won't be perfect. So rather than be judged, you won't be able to judge me because I'm not going to put myself in the competition. I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to show up. And never thought about the opting out behind that was perfectionism. And I wonder now, with that revelation, is there freedom behind saying, what if I opt in? And it's not don't care, because I think we can't completely turn it off. But with applying grace, one of the big things I think is probably surrounding yourself. This is now I'm moving into like what are some takeaways and transformations are. Surrounding yourself with a village of people that will affirm you.
100%.
Right? So that the naysayers are going to say what they want to say. The people that are very harshly judging themselves, so they're judging you just as harshly or even harsher, those people are going to be there, and you can't get rid of those things because those are all outside of your control. But if you surround yourself with a village that is positive and affirming and authentic and real, you can get important feedback without taking in all the other noise that is that's really other people's problems, weight, and baggage, and you don't need it.
Yes.
So for me, I'm transformationally, I'm thinking a takeaway is participate on your own terms.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I just literally participate on my own terms.
Absolutely. I think too, which again, I think some of this is just, at least again, for me, like age. And I think also having a daughter and even my husband has helped. Like I've also just like not taken myself so seriously.
Yes.
There is this like, again, like, I don't know, like the freaking doll of Barbie, like this hyper awareness of like what I look like. And if I do that, I might look crazy or like silly things, playing sport, like everything. It was just of like,
Right.
that outside perspective, like looking in of like, I could look nuts doing that, like whatever. So just being like silly and like just not like, it's not that serious and like having fun. And I think having my daughter and like just how she like is and just so free spirited and like dancing, where it's like interesting, like just seeing, again, it makes me think like, is it like how much it could be conditioning, because like seeing her, I'm like, none of that exists in her.
Well, she's 2.
Like natural. Right. But even that, like I've caught myself in like, I think at around 9-10 months, I started noticing it of myself, but then people also saying like, good girl, and like all of this. So I was like, okay, we need to take that
language out.
I'm like, I know it's probably my own trauma, but I'm like, no more good girl. And like less, I think I even saw this somewhere, like less praising her for like just silly things, like just like, and not I heard someone else say like not interrupting her when she's genuinely just doing something for her own pure joy and happiness. Because the second like she's doing something and then you're like, good girl, and it's like, oh, I'm doing this to please mommy.
Correct.
Versus I just genuinely was having fun, like
because it made me happy.
This toy or like putting this here, like not looking like, because then I started noticing she's then now like looking for me to like clap when she does that. So it just made me become so much more aware of like how I'm right now pregnant with a little boy, so I can't say like the experience of raising like a boy, but like with a girl, those expectations that I think even unconsciously you can place on them. And I will say like with her, which it's been so refreshing, like she has such a just energy and like, I don't know, like free spirit about her that even like literally like we're in like the airport and public places, like women, like older women will stop us and be like, do not like let her lose that.
Don't quench that
like
spirit.
Don't take that out of her.
Yeah.
And like it gives me chills when they like say it, and I'm just like, I don't think I ever had it to that extent. But like how amazing is even for like my journey, like she's teaching me of like I need to embrace more of this and like join her now. Like
or maybe you had it.
Maybe I did have it and it just got taken out younger.
Shitted out of you.
Maybe that
right?
is a good way of looking at it.
Without, like she got it from somewhere, and obviously she's a combination of you and Stefan, but it's still, maybe she is you uninterrupted. Who would you be uninterrupted? I did feel like all the thinking that you were doing around even how to like be with her is like, let me do it differently. That feels draining. I will say, as a mother of a boy, I'm doing the same thing of thinking about how do I affirm him and when do I affirm him, and does he need to constantly get validation externally versus being able to be good with himself. And so I would say I'm very big on not raising boys and girls very differently.
We were actually, me and my husband just talking that whole, what is that like McDonald'sation, like we were talking about that, about like the colors and like boys do this and girls do that. So like in general, trying to not.
Obviously, I think it's more about raising the kid based on who they are. Yes. And you're coloring who around the edges.
Not who you
want them to be or think they should be. There's that should word again. So I had no idea we were going to talk about good girl and perfectionism, but no, it's what was needed and necessary. I already got an aha moment for myself. Hopefully other people, the people listening, got something for themselves. So I jotted down some transformational thoughts and / takeaways. I wrote down embrace uniqueness. I think that's one way to push back against perfectionism, is just embrace your uniqueness. Because if you're thinking more internally about what are my superpowers, how did God design me? The second thing I wrote was talk to God about it. I love the idea of saying, okay, if I have faith and I believe I was designed, then can you give me some revelation about how you designed me so I can embrace the way you made me more than I am trying to be something that I see around me. So a lot more like internal conversation with you and God, saying, help me to see the uniqueness and the specialness of how you designed me. So a lot more looking at yourself and saying, what do I like?
Yeah.
What do I like? I don't know if I've ever really thought about asking that question.
Like about yourself?
Yes. What do I like? What do I like? What am I proud of? Not my accomplishments, but proud of. I had no say in what gifts I got, but I got these. So I'm proud of them. I'm proud that I have them. I like this about myself.
You know what's interesting? And it actually makes me think of that. Like, I don't think she even realized how much of a gift it was, but like a manager I had like 3 years ago, like every birthday, she would do like this Google form, and it would be like what I admire, like for birthdays. So I'm just using myself as an example, but like what I admire about Eden, what Eden's superpower is, and then I forget what the other question is, but something like that. And then it would get sent to the entire office.
And they had to fill these
And the
in
office
about you.
would fill it out about that whoever's birthday it was. And then she would compile them into an email and then send it to you. But she would list every single one. So you would then see duplicates. Or at least like for me, it was like Ishima Kam, she's like, I can't believe how many people are saying exactly the same thing. So like in each section, there was like 3 or 4 that were like the same thing over and over, and it's people individually like writing it. And it was just very insightful, because even at first, like getting that, it was insightful in a way, but then again, I think that Google thing, it was like, oh wait, I don't know if I should appreciate, like now am I like tooting your own horn?
Don't want to get cocky.
I don't want to get cocky. And I'm like, I didn't even say these things about myself. But it is very helpful, I think, in that way, because that's not even in like a people-pleasing way. I don't think she realized how much a gift that is, of like, also those people aren't saying it to your face, but not in a bad way, because I just feel like it's such like a safe space.
Yeah.
Because there's like nothing really on the line. Like they're sharing, and then it just gives you that insight. And then I don't know where I heard this, people say like, and then like just stop the analyzing and like just take it. Like what if you're not like just take
what if
it.
you just
Let
sat
it just
there?
Sat there.
Yes.
Like sit there.
Yes.
And I think like you said, like if you look at it as like your gifts or your superpowers or what you were like born with and what you were gifted with, like it's not you. It's just like within you, it's coming through you. So like you're not taking like credit for it, or you're not like being boastful about it. It's just
but you're owning it.
Yes, but you're owning it. And then kind of like what I said about like being in your power, like these are the things about like being in my power and like staying in love, like just knowing that that's something that you lead with. And the more you lean into that, you're going to be, again, like being on purpose, like living your purpose and allowing that to come through you.
Yeah.
Versus, again, it being this like
standard rules, metrics, box, all these restriction things. Yeah.
And like, if that person's that, then I can't be that. Like where it's more like embracing it, and then everybody has that. So it allows everyone else to like shine and have their own.
Crystallized, I'd say we're all designed for a reason with a composition that has purpose. And if we would just say, okay, what am I here for? What am I supposed to do? Then I'm focused on my assignment, and I'm less focused on the comparison of what I don't have, what I'm not. I also saw, as you were describing, receiving this information about yourself that was positive, like a person sitting in a room where people said nice things about them. How long do you think you could sit?
Oh my gosh, in person?
Yeah. Yes, right? And it's actually something maybe at some point when we start doing things live with people, right? Is an exercise. Is like sit and maybe, 5 minutes. Could you even do 5 minutes? Like I think a woman probably start to vibrate and explode. Death by compliment, right? Of being able to absorb good things said about you, where you just absorb it and not try to be self-deprecating, rejecting of it. Well, I'm not really that. All the things,
or like diminishing it.
Yeah, correct. And so it's kind of like when you say give people their flowers while they're alive. It's doing more of that, just absorbing the positive things that people say about you and being able to like take each compliment and put it under your feet so you can rise a little higher. I remember when I was talking to our therapist about doing this and just being in places and spaces where I'm uncomfortable, but I'm also being seen. And he said, I was like, I think I said something about like, how am I going to do that? Like it felt like work, like climbing a mountain, I think, right? I must have a thing with mountains, hills and mountains, trying to stay out of the valleys. He said, instead of thinking about climbing, he said, see yourself standing on a riser and you just stand still and the riser rises. So it's like, let the grounds underneath you rise.
Right.
It's really not, shift your perspective on it being so hard. When I think about climbing a mountain, that's hard. When I think about standing on a platform that moves, I just got to stay still. It's effortless. And it's not without effort, but when you're standing on and operating in your gifts and the talents that God has given you, there is an ease and a flow that comes, but it's more about being and becoming than it is about trying and doing. Trying and doing, being and becoming. And what's so bizarre about it is trying and doing is harder. It's hard. But being, what was the other word? Being and becoming, that's harder. Because you got to kind of be still.
Which I think, yes, in that sense, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest, like, first step. And then it gets
easier. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. But juxtaposed between the two, the trying and doing, it's like, let me keep moving, going, doing, being. And then it's like, no, let me stop. Let me pause. Let me be. Let me become. Let me just be, like, just sit and just stop. During my workout, sometimes it just happened this week. I was like looking at my phone, do a set, look at my phone. And my trainer said, you can't possibly be that important. That for 35 minutes, you can't unplug.
I love
like
that.
The world is going to fall apart. And I love him to death. So I know that it was coming from, and I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm not that important, or I should be more important to myself in this space that I'm in than I am to being like making sure everything's okay, that I'm being responsive. And so, good girl and perfectionism. I think we've kind of shattered it.
I know. In a completely different direction than I ever thought this was going to go.
So the other takeaway I wrote down was surround yourself with people, which I said earlier, that help you with grace and objective perspective. I think that's a big part of how you can, when you surround yourself with women that are trying to grow in similar ways, you're just affirming each other and encouraging each other and empowering each other. And like, I just did this and it worked really well for me. Try this. And so there's a lot of like, there's support in the being and the becoming, but it's so much easier once you embrace it than the doing and the trying. I'm exhausted thinking about, I think I've been doing a lot of trying and doing. So I have to take away for myself. I got to reflect and do some more being, which might mean clearing out some things from the plate to be able to be still so that I can be more of what I'm supposed to be becoming than the trying and the doing, like almost like finding value in busyness and needing to make a shift away from that. So the D's, I don't know if we want to do our development journey. I don't know if I can actually. I think there's truth in that. I can't do a development journey with the doubt to destiny because I think I'm somewhere in the middle of that path. I'm looking at your notes and I think I'm probably in discovery.
I think it's also something that, although it's interesting, I know we did we've done examples through others that are also like can be a recurring theme. But I think for this one, A, it's very like layered, and then B, it comes up a lot in different ways. So I think I like move through it quicker and I'm way more aware of it that I can like kind of snip it, but like it still shows itself. Like even recently, it popped up in therapy and I'm like, that's like was such like a micro version of it. I'm like, I never even saw it that way. So it was like fascinating to me. I'm like, it wasn't as like judgy and it wasn't as serious, but I'm like, it's still a version of it.
So I was thinking of, you said you're recovering. Maybe the goal is to evolve into I'm a former. I used to be. I can relate. But I am, what's the word when you've gotten on the other side? Former's one is to like, almost like not a survivor, but like a healed.
Yeah.
Like it's in my past.
Yes.
So I can relate. It's part of my testimony,
Right.
but
Like, I
I do
used to do
not
that,
suffer
but I
from it
don't,
anymore.
yeah.
No, I am a healed. I once
Perfectionist.
was, correct.
Yes.
So maybe the journey and the destiny is to go from being a recovering perfectionist to a healed perfectionist. I'm not that anymore.
Yeah.
So like there's irony in the healed perfectionist, right? If she's healed, she knows there's no such thing. So it's so pop up. So I even like the fact that we're like, I can't actually do the D's with this one right now, but it's the journey. We're on the journey. We're in the middle of it somewhere. So not at doubt, not quite at the destiny, but we've at least defined the destiny. So we know, okay, I want to get to where I'm a healed perfectionist. I've been healed
We're in
from
the
it.
doing. I think it's like the doing and the...
It's more, just the more growing.
Yeah.
And some of that I think also comes with age. I am at a stage of life where like when I see, I'm looking at Oprah Winfrey in 70 and she's living her best life, but I also think she's gotten to a point where it's like, I'm going to say what I want to say, when I want to say it. I want to say it. I saw a snippet of an interview where she just said that she just did a special and on, what was it, on weight and, blah, 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 all this stuff connected. And I saw a snippet of an interview where she said, I wasn't going to do it because I was concerned about all the judgment around it. And then she's like, the impact it could have in freeing people is more important than the criticism. So I did it anyway. And I like that she acknowledged there was a moment because she's human, but she did it anyway. And so as I'm growing, I think
that's the goal.
Yeah,
is like
correct.
Some things don't ever it might pop up, but
correct.
It's like you get,
but you whack it right down
quick. You're like realize not falling into that trap. Like thanks for trying. Like
There's a poem we could bring up at another time. Someone told me about it. It's like you're on a journey, and it's like something like I used to come up with. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love. We should 100%. We should read.
Put
that
it in
one
the show
day.
notes,
yes.
or we'll read it in a future episode. The
I
whole
love
right.
That, yeah.
Eventually, I think you get to the end and you just walk around it, but
you keep falling into the
correct.
same hole over and over.
Spend less time in it each time.
We'll
show notes, a link to it. Yeah, it's fascinating. So thanks for joining us. It was a fantastic conversation. Better than I thought it was. The perfectionist in me was afraid to have this conversation, but I leaned all the way into it, and here we are. So thanks for joining us. Until next time.
Thank you.
Remember to unlock your queen
and unleash her dreams.